Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Stosny, and welcome to our webinar on building immunity to emotional pollution. Timely topic in our times of having negative feelings all around us through social media, through the internet, through regular media. We have adversarial journalism now. It's all around us. Now, there are two sides to the tide of emotion. By tide of emotions, I mean the variation in emotions, what makes them ebb and flow. One is the stream within and the web, what I call the web without. Now, the stream within is we have a continual stream of mostly unconscious low-grade emotions. There's hardly any time during the day when you're not experiencing some kind of emotion, but it's usually so low-grade that it's outside of awareness. This is influenced by personal history, memory, imagination, conditioned associations, and so forth. The web without comes because emotions are more contagious than any known virus. The human emotional system is socially oriented. Early humans were tribal long before the development of sophisticated language, so the only way they could negotiate and communicate is through emotional display. Emotions held us together then and hold us together now. We are transmitting emotions all the time when we're with other people and we're receiving them. We have a continuous low-grade, mostly unconscious emotional response to everyone we encounter. And everyone we encounter has a continuous low-grade, mostly unconscious emotional response to everyone they encounter. Subtle emotional responses pass continuously along this web of emotion. So this is how I like to think of it. We're in the center and we're reacting to everyone and everyone's reacting to us. Now the web without influences the stream within and vice versa. We're aware mostly of the stream within, not so much of the influences without, unless they're overt, somebody starts talking loudly or something. But we're having that emotional response more subtly, virtually all the time. Now, here's the important thing. We control the stream within, but not the web without. So the way to protect yourself and influence the web without is by controlling the stream within. Now, how does the web of emotion get polluted? Negative emotions get priority processing in the brain. They're more necessary for immediate survival, even though positive emotions are more necessary for survival in the long run. The way I like to explain that is you will live longer and be happier if you can admire the rolling lawn and the trees around the edges with the sun glinting through the leaves. But you have to notice the snake in the grass, or you won't live long enough to appreciate the beauty. So negative emotions always get priority processing. Our brains are always scanning the environment for danger and hostility, almost completely outside of awareness, but it's pretty continual. Negative emotions are more contagious than positive emotions because of their survival importance. Now, just as environmental polluters spread waste and trash in the environment without regard to its effect on others, emotional polluters spread hostility in the environment without regard to the effects on others. If someone comes into work resentful, by lunchtime, everyone around that person is resentful. Aggressive drivers make other drivers aggressive. Somebody cuts you off, you're liable to start tailgating somebody else. A teenager with an attitude ruins the family dinner, makes you avoid it altogether. A resentful spouse makes TV viewing tense and unpleasant. There's lots of little examples and lots of serious examples too. Emotional pollution passes cubicle by cubicle throughout the workplace, car by car down the road, locker by locker in school, and room by room at home. It's inescapable. Now, because emotional pollution feeds on feelings, Immunity must come from deeper values. A person or object you value is important to you, worthy of appreciation, time, energy, effort, and sacrifice. Values provide meaning and purpose. If your life has meaning and purpose, you have a set of values and you are more or less consistent with them. If your life lacks meaning and purpose, you don't have a sense of value or you're violating them. It gives you a sense of permanence. You know who you are when you have a set of values. And it leads to proactive behavior. In contrast, feelings are transitory. They come and go. They're physiological in function. They send action signals to the muscles and organs of the body. They prepare you to do something. They're mostly physiological. I personally believe we give them a psychological meaning arbitrarily, a lot of cases. And they're almost entirely reactive. And that's why they're so susceptible to emotional pollution. Now, feelings are dependent on current sensations as well. We're likely to react one way when warm, another when cold, one way when comfortable, and another when uncomfortable. Acting on values makes feelings more positive. That is, gives us integrity, authenticity, and proactivity. But acting on feelings often violates deeper values and makes us reactaholics. And the reactaholism is how emotional pollution gets spread so easily and can come to dominate your life. Now, cleaning up emotional pollution. Step one, declare what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be reactive to other people? That means they push your buttons and make you act against your best interests, or behave in your long-term best interests regardless of what people say or do? Do you want to be driven by your ego or motivated by your deeper values? Step two is identify with your deeper values. Now, these are the broad value categories. Those of you familiar with the boot camp know these from your core value bank. The first is basic humanity. Those are things like compassion, kindness, equality, altruism, fairness, respect, etc. I believe we're hardwired for those things, some more than others, and there are certainly mutations of the hardwiring, and that's what I think sociopaths are. But this basic humanity was instrumental to our survival very early in life, when we had to band together in tight social units to hunt and fight collectively. So that's why that is, I believe, a hardwired value. Love, that's emotional support, kindness, compassion, appreciation, respect, acceptance of differences. Spirituality, a sense of connection to something larger than the self, a primary value for most people. Beauty, that's natural and creative. The ability to appreciate beauty is uniquely human and gives us a sense of well-being. Community, that's goodwill, cooperation, flexibility, feeling connected or identifying with a group of people based on experiences or values or goals or something else. So whatever you come up with for your core values, you want to identify with those. Step three is stand for something. This is a quote by Henry David Thoreau: be not simply good, be good for something. Because our great strength as human beings is standing for something. Emotional pollution is all about being against something, devaluing rather than valuing, tearing down rather than building up. To combat emotional pollution, you actually fall into it if you're against emotional pollution, but if you're against respect, or I'm sorry, if you're for respect for all, your motivations are going to be much more powerful and much more positive. They will generate energy rather than deplete energy. So list 5 things that you stand for. And these are going to be based on your deeper values. For example, fairness, hard work, integrity, compassion, kindness, whatever it is, these are things that you stand for. When you feel, and you are true to the things you stand for, whether or not you feel like it, whether or not you're tired, whether or not, because feelings are just too transitory to base a sense of self on. And a powerful sense of self is the combat against emotional pollution. It's our greatest guarantee of scrubbing emotional pollution from the environment. So make the values you listed the guide and measure for your behavior for the next 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, you'll enjoy a greater sense of well-being and authenticity. It's practically guaranteed if you're able to do that, make those things you stand for, your motivation and whatever you're doing. You'll build immunity to emotional pollution. It won't affect you. And you'll help scrub it from the human web. Now, the bottom line is we either influence the web or the web influences us. We spread basic humanity or let in resentment. We radiate light or let in darkness. Okay, part 2 is eliminating emotional pollution from love relationships, because the saddest thing about it is the way they affect love relationships. Most of the negative emotions couples blame on each other, they download from the web of emotion as a result of emotional pollution. Now that might sound, well, it is controversial. I won't lie to you, it's controversial. But if you doubt it, test the hypothesis. Don't take my word for it. See if it's true in your own life. And this is based on a survey we did. Briefly describe the last 3 times you've had negative feelings about your partner. Now you can stop the video to fill those in, but think of 3 times when you've had negative feelings about your partner. And then write what you were doing or experiencing immediately before you had the bad feelings. Before the bad feelings for your partner started, what were you experiencing or doing? What was your partner doing or experiencing immediately before your negative feelings? Did any negative feelings unrelated to your partner perceive the negative feelings for your partner? In other words, were you feeling negative about something else or someone else? Did you feel connected to your partner before the negative emotions? See, negative emotions don't typically disconnect us. They occur when we are disconnected. Now, of the 400 couples interviewed, 83% reported that negative feelings unrelated to the partner preceded negative feelings between the partners. So you were primed for it. And that's almost, well, 83% of the time that was the case. In no case did couples feel connected before the negative feelings passed between them. The space between partners is a petri dish for emotional pollution. It will grow like a mold quickly in a petri dish when partners are disconnected. Now, to improve relationships, we have to work together to overcome the effects of emotional pollution rather than blame them on each other. And that's, after 30 years of working with distressed couples, that's what gets me the saddest, when people blame each other for their problems rather than working together to solve them. And their problems more and more are coming from downloading this negativity from their environment. And it requires that we focus more on values than feelings. Not surprisingly, feelings are the stuff of emotional pollution. Values are the antidote. Now, it's impossible to sort out feelings about violating your values from feelings about your partner. And the reason for that is whenever you violate your values, like when you're not compassionate, kind, loving to somebody you love, even if it's a reaction to them being a jerk, you're going to feel an unconscious guilt and shame. And that's not to punish you, it's to keep you true to your deeper values. And it becomes impossible to separate that from the negative feeling from your partner because they're all being funneled into the resentment or anger. Now, the underlying problem is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a discomfort of self-image colliding with reality. So we all have this idea of how we like to think about ourselves and how we want other people to think of us. And cognitive dissonance is the distance between that and what is real. Now, some cognitive dissonance is inevitable. Genuine self-image concerns what is most important to you, while behavior is usually about short-term comfort, pleasure, and utility. So it can very easily, and does very easily, collide with self-image. Now, here's how it should work in a relationship. I'm a compassionate and loving partner, yet I'm resentful and not compassionate toward you. Therefore, I'll adjust my behavior to be more compassionate. See, it's a guide for your behavior, get you back on track so that you can be who you really are. But this is how it often works, and how it works more and more with the effects of emotional pollution. I'm a compassionate and loving partner, yet I'm resentful and uncompassionate to you. Therefore, there must be something wrong with you. And I have to keep focused on what I don't like to justify my negative feelings. And that is how people get trapped in relationships. You're justifying the negative feelings by focused on what you don't like about your partner. Now, what we've learned from neurology in the last 15 years is that whatever you focus on is more important than what you don't focus on. And whatever you focus on, you're likely to get more of it. So to justify these negative feelings, instead of using cognitive dissonance as a guide to adjust your own behavior, you're blaming it on your partner, and that's what keeps you trapped in bad relationships. Or it's how relationships become bad and then keep you trapped in them. Cognitive dissonance is not about getting what you want. It's about being who you really are, true to your deepest values. Now, we asked participants 2 questions in the survey I mentioned. What kind of partner do you most want to be? And what kind of partner do you most want to have? Now, the surprise, it was not a surprise for the kind of partner I want to be. I want to be more loving, compassionate, supportive, sexy. Generally in that order, those were the most likely responses, most frequent responses. Now, I want my partner to be more, some agreement, some difference. I want my partner to be loving, compassionate, supportive, fair, flexible, and sexy. See, these 2 were different. Fair and flexible. Hardly anyone identified those 2 things, where I want to be more fair, I want to be more flexible. But most people wanted their partner to be more fair and more flexible. The problem with that is your only chance of getting the partner you most want to have is to be the partner you most want to be. So if you're not going to be fair and flexible, it's highly unlikely your partner will be. All right, now circle the point that best describes your current state as a partner in the following continuum. We all fall in this continuum. Now, describe what you will do to move a notch closer to the kind of partner you want to be. And then answer, are you willing to do what you've described unilaterally, even if your partner does not change? And the reason you have to do it unilaterally is because emotional pollution puts you in a highly reactive state. You're reactive to each other, but the reactivity is triggered by nonverbal cues such as body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, level of distraction, eye contact, that sort of thing. It gets activated with nobody doing anything wrong. So to stop that reactive pattern, you've got to self-regulate, act according to your deepest values, do whatever you said you would do, even if your partner does not. Now, keeping emotional pollution out of the house requires self-regulation and connection. Self-regulation is staying true to your deeper values under stress, seeking to improve, appreciate, protect, and connect. Those of you familiar with the boot camp, those are the core value motivations. You really can't go wrong if you're trying to improve, appreciate, protect, or connect. A connection is an attitude and a choice. We choose to regard ourselves as connected and choose to regard ourselves as disconnected. Connective behaviors follow from an attitude of connection. In other words, whatever the connective behaviors you try for, if you don't have an attitude of connection, they're not going to be successful. And if you do have an attitude of connection, the smallest connective behaviors will be successful. In fact, it's routine connection that really separates happy marriages from unhappy marriages. If you want to love big, you think small moments of routine connection. The key to big change lies in small everyday emotions. So we want to make brief connective thoughts and behaviors a part of your daily routine. A researcher named Barbara Fredrickson has come up with a phrase that I love. It's called, she calls it micro moments of connection. And that's frequent gestures, brief touches, gentle eye contact, these things that take a second or two each time you do them, but scattered throughout the day, all the time you're together. And her research shows not only that these brief gestures, these brief moments of connection, not only separate happy from unhappy unions, it also separates the healthy from the unhealthy. Other research has also shown that happy marriages increase the immune system, but hers shows that it's just these small gestures that do it. If you're familiar with the boot camp, you're familiar with our oxytocin hugs, where you hug in a full body embrace, as much of your body parts touching as possible, for 6 seconds, and you do that 6 times a day. Now, the reason you want to hold it for 6 seconds is you're not used to hugging that much or hugging in that way. So if you're still attached, the oxytocin will occur by the 4th second, even if you force the hug. You know, it's so, well, we might as well get one of our hugs out of the way because we got to do it 6 times. That's all right, because by the 4th second, you'll get the oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that makes us feel close and connected. It facilitates emotional bonds and calms anxiety. Now, transition to a routine connection. We need transitions, especially today when people bring their work home. It's on our phones. A lot of people work from home. And the way that you relate to loved ones is different categorically from the way you relate at work or with anyone else. So we used to have a lot of rituals that would help us with those transitions, but we don't really anymore. So what we have to do is come up with a brief ritual to do before entering the house. That could be wearing something only outside the house, a pin or a handkerchief, anything that will show the difference between how you relate outside and how you relate with loved ones. In other words, you put the pin or the handkerchief on when you leave the house and you take it off when you enter. Or just an utterance before entering the house, something like, our home is a place of kindness, affection, compassion, appreciation. Our home is free of emotional pollution. Thank you for your attention, and scrub as much emotional pollution as you can from the web outside and keep it out of your home forever.